Hello, thank you for joining. I'm Dr. Reba Peoples, board-certified psychiatrist and founder of Amara Health and Wellness. My mission is to empower you to become a steward of your own health and architect of your own destiny. Today we're going to be talking about some of the top 5 reasons why your antidepressant may not be working. Now, for anyone who's ever struggled with depression, it can definitely be very frustrating when medications just aren't working. So what are some reasons why antidepressants may not work for you? We know that in general, antidepressants have about a 55 to 75% response rate, meaning that symptoms do improve somewhat in response to taking a medication. Unfortunately, in spite of a 55 to 75% response rate, only about 33% of people who take antidepressants actually have full remission of their symptoms, which is a little bit better than placebo. And what this implies is that there are certainly some complex issues at play that factor into depression. And for certain people, adjusting monoamines, meaning serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, can be very powerful in helping those people achieve remission. However, in another 65% of people, purely focusing on monoamines is inadequate to address symptoms. So what are some reasons that can be at play when we're looking at reasons why antidepressants aren't helpful for that other 65% of people? The first reason to consider is that you're not understanding the root cause of these symptoms. Now, certainly whenever you're addressing depression, you do want to make sure that you're working to identify any underlying medical conditions that may be factoring into the depression. So are there any issues with hypothyroidism or anemia, for example? You also want to think about any functional nutrient deficiencies. So things like B vitamin deficiencies, vitamin D deficiencies, zinc deficiencies can all really impact your mood and influence how well your body is able to respond to antidepressant medications. Lastly, you also want to think about any inflammatory contributors to your symptoms. So things like food sensitivities or even food allergies, environmental toxins, or even toxic stress. If those issues aren't identified and addressed, then it also becomes very difficult to adequately treat your depression. Now, once underlying medical conditions have been ruled out and an antidepressant started, oftentimes people find that they still just don't have an adequate response to medications. And in those instances, a lot of times people find that the side effects of their medications are often offsetting any potential benefits. So you definitely want to match the right medication with the right symptom profile. And by that, I mean there are certain medications that tend to aggravate symptoms depending on what's going on with the individual. So if you're someone who has more of an anxious, sort of agitated depression, then you may not be someone who does well with an activating medication like Wellbutrin, because that can actually aggravate symptoms of anxiety in certain people. Your unique biochemistry and genetics can also influence how well you're able to respond to and metabolize certain medications. So our livers have special enzymes called cytochromes that help us break down medications in our bodies. So people who have certain alterations in their cytochromes do tend to respond differently to different medications. Also, different individuals have what we call SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, within our genetic makeup that also influence how well we process certain medications. So people with SNPs in their serotonin transporter genes, for example, find that certain SSRI medications just aren't as effective for them as they are for people without those particular SNPs. A third reason your antidepressant may not be working is that it's being prescribed for the wrong diagnosis. So oftentimes we see symptoms of depression in people with bipolar disorder or psychosis or even certain neurological conditions like Parkinson's disease or early Alzheimer's. And in those instances, prescribing an antidepressant won't fully target symptoms. And in certain conditions, like bipolar disorder, for example, prescribing an antidepressant can sometimes do more harm than good, especially if it's not prescribed in combination with a mood stabilizer. A fourth reason your antidepressant may not be working is purely due to user error. So we do live in sort of a quick fix culture, and the expectation is that if we take medication, we'll see benefit right away. But with antidepressants, we generally find that it does take a good 4 weeks or so before you start to notice full benefit from being on an antidepressant. So it is important to be patient with your medications before deciding to stop taking them. Now, of course, if you're having severe side effects or other issues that are making the medications intolerable to take, then that's a different matter, and you should discuss that with your treating psychiatrist. Now, another thing to be aware of is that you're taking your medications on a regular basis. So when you do skip doses, that also makes it very difficult for the medication to work effectively. The last thing to be aware of is the importance of proper self-care. So are you getting enough sleep at night? Are you moving your body on a daily basis? Are you eating, real phytonutrient-dense whole foods? Are you working on stress management? And relationship-wise, are you surrounding yourself with a healthy, positive social network? All of those things can also really have a significant impact on the way that you feel. So just to summarize, if you're finding that your antidepressant isn't working for you, you do want to make sure that you have done a good job of trying to identify the root cause of the depression. You also want to make sure that you're taking the right medication for your particular biochemistry and diagnosis. You also want to make sure that you're taking the medications properly, making sure to not skip doses and making sure to stay on the medication long enough to see benefit. And lastly, you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Getting enough sleep, proper nutrition, exercising, and working on stress management are all very effective ways of targeting depression. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Also, if there are any future topics that you would like to see addressed, please be sure to comment below. Be well and God bless.